Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and here's my first card using the Simon Says Stamp September 2018 card kit. I had already stamped a couple of the images onto the Neenah Classic Crest 80-pound cardstock with Simon's Intense Black ink. And then I pulled out my Eclipse masking tape roll. These were the rage years ago, years and years ago, and then they were almost impossible to get. And then I noticed they're back in stock again. I thought they had been discontinued. I will link to another option as well, just the masking sheets. The great thing about the roll though is it lasts forever. I've literally had mine for close to 10 years now, I think. And it's basically like a full sticky note. It just has that temporary, tacky adhesive on the back of the entire thing. And this one comes in a roll. So whatever works. You can use Post-it notes, although the mermaid images are kind of too big. But like I said, I will link to the Simon Says Stamp masking sheets, which are full 8.5 by 11 sheets. Those work great too. And those also last a really long time. So I'd stamp the images and then I stamped them onto this masking paper. And then I'm just trimming them out with my detail cutting scissors. And I had stamped and then I've masked off the mermaid, the little fish, and this little seaweed image. And then the masks are completely covering all three images here. And then I'm going to use the two Distress Oxide inks that come in the kit. So I've got Tumbled Glass and Stormy Sky. And I'm not really blending so much as just adding color to fill in the background. So I'm not worried about getting a perfect blend. I actually kind of don't mind a little bit of texture kind of showing here. And I'm not worried about the bottom areas or the sides because since this is going to be a shaker card, I knew what circle die I was going to use. And I would just hold up the die just to give me an idea of how far I needed to pull that color out. So I would just kind of mush on the colors and I would go back and forth between the Stormy Sky and the Tumbled Glass to kind of blend them together a little bit. And then once I was happy with how much color I'd added, that they were going to completely cover that whole area that's going to be exposed with the window, then I can peel off my masks. And these masks I will save. I just stick them to the backing sheet. Anytime I create masks, especially if they involve a lot of fussy cutting, I just save them, stick them to the stamp backing sheet. So next time I go to use the set, I've got masks already ready to go if I want to use them. So peeled off my masks and now I can get to coloring in everything. And I am using Copic Markers to do all my coloring. Very basic coloring, my kind of go-to skin tone color combo of E13, E21, E50, and then R20 for her cheeks, going from darkest to lightest to kind of blend everything together. So I'm just going to use my little tiny circle motions to kind of blend everything together, add the R20 for her cheeks, blend that out. And then for her hair, I am using purples. I had posted a sneak peek of just the coloring on my Instagram and some people thought this was gray. And it's not, but it can come across as gray, which is kind of fun too. I like it. I like either any color works, really. I like gray hair, purple hair, pink hair, green hair with mermaids. It's just kind of a habit to go with, fun colors because why not? So these are kind of more purpley gray colors. I guess I would say muted purple. I chose that specifically though because it kind of this color combo works really nicely with the metallic lavender envelope that comes in the kit. So I used those for her hair. And then I'm going to use my kind of go-to brighter green color combo for her tail and the seaweed because I thought it just kind of played nicely together. And then I'm also going to use some kind of muted yellow-orange or yellow-red markers for the shell, the fish, and the little starfish in her hair. The muted purple kind of got me thinking about doing slightly more muted colors instead of my typical bright rainbow colors. So I used the yellow reds for that. Then for her tail, I did go a little bit brighter just to kind of play off that purple. Plus this combo is one of my favorites. So the YG17, the 25, and the 23. So I used those for her tail. I didn't bother coloring the bottom portion of her tail because you're not going to see it. And then use that also for the little bit of seaweed here. And then I pulled out Y28, Y26, and then added a little bit of Y15 for more of a gold color. This was more of a play for the sequins that come in the kit that I'm going to use in the shaker. Plus I thought those would look really pretty again with the purple and the kind of like muted orange colors. And then I just added that little bit of Y15 just to brighten it up a tiny little bit. So once all my Copic coloring is done, I'm going to add just a bunch of highlights and whatnot with my white gel pen. I'm using the Uniball 10, the widest one. I've had a lot of people asking me lately to what gel pen I use. I do link to everything I use. It's all listed in the description box below the video. It's also listed on the end of all my blog posts, and there's also links to everything that you can check out if you're interested as well. So I just add little dots and little highlights here and there to her hair and the shells and the little fish and the seaweed and whatnot. Just going with it. Adding highlights, adding little dots for texture. And then once this coloring and a little bit of highlights with the white gel pen are done, I can start assembling the actual like shaker element of the card. So I die cut a circle from a piece of this Tonic wave paper that again comes in the kit. I absolutely loved that. I wanted that to kind of be, you know, a main focus on the card as well because it's just gorgeous. So I die cut a circle from that, and then I backed it with a piece of white cardstock that I die cut with a smaller white circle die, just because the Tonic paper, it's cotton, so it's not, I wouldn't call it sturdy, and since I wanted to make this into a shaker, I needed something to back it, so that's why I'm going to frame it with the white cardstock. And then I also die cut the AQUA glitter cardstock in the kit using the Big Friend wafer die from Simon. So I die cut the word from the AQUA glitter cardstock, and then I die cut the outline just from more of that Neenah 80-pound cardstock, and then I'm sponging the STORMY Sky Distress Oxide ink onto that. And then after it's been sponged, I'm going to pop out all the little pieces there and then sponge some more just to get the edges so none of the white edge is exposed. So getting that all sponged on there, and then I can adhere the glitter die cut word on top of that, and I'm just going to use my multimedia matte adhesive. Just a nice thin line of that all around the back of this die cut. So once I've got that in place, to get the little dot on the eye, I didn't throw out the outline of the AQUA glitter paper because the little dot to the eye is still in there. More often than not, if I pop that out before I go to like adhere everything in the end, I always lose the dots to the eyes every time, every single time. So I try to make it a habit if I can to like either leave it in the die if it's in there, or I leave it in the, you know, the scrap of cardstock or glitter paper or whatever that I cut it out of, because otherwise I just, no matter what I do, I end up like knocking it off my desk or something. It grows legs and walks away. So this time I set it aside so it's still in the glitter paper. So I adhered the main part of the sentiment, got that into place, and then I just added a dot of adhesive where the dot of the eye is going to go. So there's a tiny little dab of the multimedia matte, and then I lined up that glitter paper again, and then I just popped out the dot to the eye with the little pin that is in my multimedia matte bottle, and then that finished it off. So to adhere this wave textured paper, it's textured on both sides. It's like a 3D texture. I'm just using more of that multi-medium matte adhesive because that also gives me a couple seconds of wiggle room to line everything up, since this is a little bit flimsy, you know, on those two little sides there. So it gives me a little bit of time to kind of get everything into place before the adhesive sets. And then once that's adhered and I have, you know, my card front panel, I just grabbed a piece of transparency from my stash and cut it down to just slightly smaller than this panel to make it easy to adhere it. So I just trimmed off a little bit off each end. And then to adhere that, you can use the multimedia matte adhesive, but I've said this in other videos, when it comes to adhering transparencies, I like using what I call a dry adhesive like score tape or a tape runner, etc. I don't like fiddling if I can avoid it with liquid adhesives and transparencies, just because more often than not, the adhesive likes to ooze out and, you know, make a mess. So I like adhesives like this where it's just quick, simple, press it down, you're done. So I use score tape and just put this on the back of the white cardstock here, and then I can just quickly line that transparency up behind it, press that into place, and now I have my card front with the window that the little mermaid and whatnot is going to be peeking through. So I've got that, and now to create a shaker, I have some Scotch foam tape. There's already this piece I had just sitting on my desk from a previous project. It's already 2 layers, and I just cut the strip in half. and then removed the backing paper off both sides of this foam tape, because once you remove the backing paper, it's really flexible and I can just easily form it around this circle opening for the window. So I did that, used the remaining bit of the second piece to completely close in this window. So that's going to form my shaker opening for all the sequins. And then I just doubled up a second piece of this foam tape so that I can back the rest of this cardstock panel so that everything is even and popped up properly and isn't going to get smushed or anything like that. So I've got 2 layers of foam tape across the back of this panel with an opening in the center for my sequins. And I'm just going to use my anti-static powder tool just around the edges of the foam tape here and a little bit on the transparency itself, just to remove some of the static. I don't mind a little bit in my shaker cards, but that just helps to, you know, enable things to shake a little bit more. And then I poured in the treasure chest sequins from the kit. And then I'm just going to peel off that foam tape and press my colored panel onto the back of that, sealing it all in. So now I have my fun little shaker card with the treasure chest sequins and a little mermaid and fish and whatnot. So I did that, and then to complete the sentiment on the front of my card, I just grabbed some black cardstock from my scrap drawer, and I am going to stamp a sentiment from that beautiful mermaid set with Simon's clear embossing ink, and the embossing ink comes in the kit as well. And sorry, my head kind of gets in the way because I like to be able to look like straight down when I'm trying to line up narrow sentiments. So I stamped the sentiment with the clear embossing ink, and then I used Simon's Detail white embossing powder to emboss that. Melted that with my heat tool. Gonna funnel the rest of that embossing powder back into the container before I inevitably knock that over as well. Put the lid on that, and then I'll use my paper trimmer to trim this down into a narrow little strip here. So trim that down and then line it up again to trim off the remaining little bit. And then to adhere these to my card front, I'm just using the multimedia mat again. So putting that on the back of the die cut sentiment and then kind of getting that lined up there on top of my shaker window. And then I'm also going to use that for the little narrow heat embossed sentiment as well. Just add a little line of that multimedia matte adhesive and then adhere that to the front of my card. So once I have that adhered, my card base is heavyweight white cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2, so standard A2 size card. And before I adhere anything to the card base, I want to stamp the inside first. So I've got my base back in my little travel stamp platform, and I'm just going to stamp the mermaid and the seaweed and little fish with the Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide ink, just to give it some color and, you know, kind of continuity here. So I stamped the mermaid, and then I just moved the card base up a bit, and I'm just going to use an acrylic block to stamp the seaweed because I want it kind of hanging off the bottom of the card there. And then stamp the little fish. And then I'll put the card base back down onto the base of my platform so that I can stamp the sentiment from the set. And I'm going to ink that up with that same intense black ink. So I'm going to stamp this a few times because it's a brand new stamp. And I want to make sure this is really good and crisp and stands out against the blue ink of the mermaid. So once that's all stamped, I can now adhere my card front to the card base. And I'm going to use more of that score tape to adhere it, just putting a few lines down that since I want something really strong, since this is a thicker, you know, heavier card base. So our card front. So peel off my backing, gonna press that to my card base, and then I'm gonna pair this up with that metallic lavender envelope to tie together the purple in her hair and whatnot. And that finished off today's card. So fun little shaker card, which always fun to sit there and like play and shake. Like I mentioned, I will have links in the description box below the video to all of links to all the supplies used, a supply list, a link to my blog post, I'll have all the pictures, etc. So you can check that out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, for subscribing, for thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.